Hello everybody, it's George from Ireland, so welcome back to my channel. Enjoy my glasses, you don't see them very often. But anyway, this is commenting on Ukrainian drone strikes on Russia, because there were yet more of them. And if my computation is correct, I think it's the 15th day of Ukrainian drone strikes on Moscow. 3rd of May was the very first one. 11 of those drone strikes have been in August. It's got to the stage they're happening every other day. So, and this is what's troubling for Russia, is they're becoming more frequent. The range is increasing. It's not just the southwest corner of Moscow. They can even go to the northeast corner of Moscow. They're becoming more accurate. Up until now, there has been a pinprick on a city of 14 million people. Some trifling damage to a few unimportant buildings, but then there was a fairly important building, a government ministry, that was hit twice in Moscow City, as in the financial district. And I was thinking about this the other day. Well, they've never managed to hit any military target in Moscow, but now they have. They hit that airbase. Now, the Russians admitted that some planes were damaged. How many is some? Is that 2? Is that 20? I don't know. And what's the severity of the damage? Again, I don't know. Now, the Ukrainians are saying that they destroyed at least 2 highly valuable warplanes. So I'm blue in the face with quoting William Howard Russell, the father war correspondent. The first casualty of war is truth. Not quite sure. Let me turn this on. Not quite sure what to believe. It's probably somewhere in between, somewhere in the middle. So that will worry the Russians. It's really putting it up them. So their drones are getting better. And if it's a $5 million drone can destroy a $50 million plane, well, you can see there's a big problem there for Russia. Obviously, increasingly difficult to sustain this with their currency falling against the dollar, with having to have higher interest rates, with increasing inflation, with the economy contracting. But none of that is yet severe for Russia. And then there are obviously their sea drones damaging Russian warships, not sinking any so far. But anyway, the Ukrainian Navy is back. Okay, they had a very small patrol boat in the Black Sea, which the Russians claim to have destroyed. So increasing problems for the Russians in the Black Sea. And as I've often said, that really is the hinge of this war, is dominance in the Black Sea. And of course, I was in the Black Sea just about a fortnight ago. And even today, only hours ago, the Russians said they brought down 2 more drones over Moscow. It might have been more than 2, sorry. You mustn't believe a word they say, because they often try and underplay it. So it's a less serious threat than it really is. And previously I was saying it's merely a nuisance, but it's becoming a bit more than that. Okay, hold your horses. I can't say that Russians are fleeing in panic in huge numbers. The other thing that crossed my mind is the forest fires around Moscow. Now, forest fires break out most summers. I remember 2010, they were particularly severe. But there have been forest fires near Moscow this August, and August is the prime time for them to occur. And they were a bit worse than usual. So it made me think, did the Ukrainians deliberately set them? Have some people there, not terribly difficult, find a forest on a very dry day and actually just set some of the trees ablaze, and then it will spread. But I could be wrong. There's no evidence that they did that. But they wouldn't admit if they did, because they'd say that that's ecocide, a bit like blowing up the Kharkovka Dam. And it's much more easy to deny any responsibility for that. So yeah, just this morning over Moscow and Krasnogorsk and Chatsy area, 2 different drones shot down, 1 in each area, according to the mayor of Moscow, Sergei Sobyanin, and claiming that there was no damage to any buildings and no casualties were sustained. I don't think they've admitted to a single person being even injured. And Vnukovo Airport has been forced to shut down several times. No aircraft movements for a few hours. No landings, no takeoffs. So having to delay flights due to fly at, say, 9 in the morning. Can't fly to 11. But that means obviously the flight at 11, that might be put back to like 2 in the afternoon, because there's a huge backlog that's been created. And that might often takes 48 hours for things to be completely back to schedule, especially this time of year where they're taking off and landing almost every minute. And then planes coming into land have to be rerouted, diverted to other airports, which is a pain in the neck. And then there was a day when all 4 major civilian airports in Moscow had to do that. Vnukovo, Domodedovo, Sheremetyevo, and the other one out to the east, I forget what it's called. I've never been there. Been to the other 3. But the thing is, these are civilian targets, and so the Ukrainians shouldn't be doing that. It's probably a breach of the Geneva Convention. But they might say, well, come on, the Russians tore up the Geneva Convention a very long time ago. Now, the Ukrainian drones didn't strike the airport. They didn't kill anyone, injure anybody. They didn't damage a building, damage a plane, or anything. They simply loitered nearby. So they might say, well, we weren't targeting the airport. our drone was loitering to attack something else. Remember, the Ukrainians usually don't comment on this, say that they did it. They neither confirm nor deny that they were behind it in most cases. I remember when that drone hit the Kremlin and just singed the roof, and the Russians said it was an attempt to assassinate our President Vladimir Vladimirovich Putin, and Zelensky said it isn't, worried that then the Russians might really go nuclear, do something rash. And by the way, the nuclear threat has gone a very long time ago, almost a year ago, when Putin was mentioning that several times. There was Medvedev and others, and I thought they're going to do something. There's going to be either that or a nuclear or a chemical or biological attack in Ukraine, maybe a small one. They're preparing the script, lying, claiming the Ukrainians and the Americans are developing these weapons of mass destruction in Ukraine. So if something went off, they say, oh, it was you lot. But they're not talking about it so much, because obviously behind the scenes, the Americans warned them off. I don't know what was said to them, especially when the defense, there was a meeting one-on-one in Rome. When Jake Sullivan was there, someone I knew from my Oxford days, this American chap. But whatever it was said, it worked. And they're not talking about doing it now. It is a bluff, so that they are bluffing. If they think this is really going to win the war, they could have done it a very long time ago. So yeah, the drone threat for Russia is going to get worse and worse. But mustn't exaggerate. It's not a huge problem for them. The great majority of the drone attacks have either been just in Belgorod or just over the border, or else Moscow. Anything to spook Moscow, because that's what the very wealthy people are, to show them that no, life is not going to continue as normal. You will pay a price for this war of illegal and unprovoked aggression continuing. So yeah, it was just this morning, those 3 civilian airports, yet again, they had to stop all aircraft movements. And that's a really big deal, because so much of Russia's aircraft movements, so many of them come in and out of the capital city, rather more than their population would warrant, because that's where the money is very much concentrated. And so only yesterday, yet another drone attack close to Moscow. So the Russians often say they bring them down by electronic warfare. So it's become a banality, a sort of partly daily life. I know there's often heightened belligerence in the short term, but over the longer term, some people start to get demoralized, and this is dragging on with really no end in sight. Obviously, there's some war weariness in Ukraine as well, including the Ukrainian army. But the Ukrainian army's managed to organize rest and relaxation for these troops to go away from the front line, to have some time with their families, some recreation for 10 days, occasionally even a month. And Ukrainian soldiers, spouses, and children who've gone abroad, they often come back to spend some time in the Western Ukraine. Speaking to someone from Lviv the other day, saying life really is carrying on as it was before the war. You can do everything. Everything is open. Everything's available. And okay, to some extent that's true in Russia, not quite in the border region. They can purchase anything they want in Russia, I've been told. It's just going to cost more and take longer. It has to be ordered via a third country and imported that way. Anyway, so thank you so much for watching my channel. So please make sure you subscribe on Patreon and donate on PayPal, because I really need donations to keep this channel going. So donate at georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Goodbye, everybody. Thank you so much for watching.